The main guy is Sergeant James Harper. He's the kind of soldier everyone respects, decorated, tough, trained to handle chaos. But after a bad knee injury, he's spending his mornings doing rehab, trying to get back into fighting shape. He straps on a support brace, pushes through pain, and does the work because staying with the unit means everything to him. As part of his rehab routine, he uses a medicine that helps his knee recover. He doesn't think twice about it. It's all about getting better. He has no idea it might show up later in a blood screen. After training, James hops on his bike and rides home. His wife, Brienne, is up when he gets in. He says he didn't want to wake her, but she's glad to see him. She asks how the rehab's going and plops down on his lap. These two are clearly close. He hugs her, finds comfort in the little ordinary moments of family life. Before things get too romantic, she reminds him their son Jack is awake, so they keep it calm. Jack runs in with a drawing and beams. It's obvious James is a hands-on dad. Later they're out in the yard, James mowing or cleaning something with Jack, trying to help, and Brienne watches from the kitchen, smiling at the scene. They even take Jack to swimming lessons. Jack's nervous in the water, so James swims to the middle of the pool with him perched on his back, then tells the kid to paddle over. Jack does it, both of them grin, and Brienne captures it on her phone. Simple family stuff, and you get that James is desperately trying to hold his home life together. But the normal stuff has stress under it. Back at home, James is checking texts and missed calls about bills. He looks worried, and then the bad news hits. The Army's medical panel calls him in. He rides to Fort Bragg, waits for the meeting with the new commanding officer and the medical board, and does the little soldier things, even burns loose threads off his uniform with a lighter to look sharp. It's a tiny move, but it shows how ritualized his life still is. When he goes in, he salutes Lieutenant Colonel Roberts and explains himself. James learns he's being discharged, not honorably, and without pension or medical benefits, because a drug test came up positive for steroids. James tries to explain the injections were for his knee and pain. He never intended to cheat. The board brings up an issue with his lungs, but James says that's nonsense. He's done 4 combat tours in 5 years. Those lungs held up then. They should count now. He pleads to stay, but the new CO is stuck on the rules. The decision's final. James is out, and the way it's delivered leaves him stunned. He walks out into the flag retreat. All the soldiers salute as the bugle plays. James doesn't snap a salute. He stops, puts his hand over his heart, and watches. It's a small, quiet act of respect and maybe a little defiance, like he's honoring what the uniform meant to him even as the institution walks away from him. At home, he tells Brienne everything. He explains the injections were meant for recovery, not performance. He tells her that the new command is by the book now and doesn't care about context. Jack sits there and listens quietly. The next day, debt collectors start calling. Offers to set up a payment plan come in, but the interest and penalties make everything worse. Bills pile up and pressure grows. James brings up private contracting as an option. They pay good money, he says, but Brienne reminds him of a promise he'd made some time before. He said he wouldn't go down that road. Tension spikes. James goes up on the roof late at night, pretending to be fixing shingles or whatever, but he's really trying to keep his mind off things. Brienne finds him and drops the worst kind of news. Mason, a close friend from the unit, is dead. She says she can't handle another funeral, that she's already worn out by grief. She asks why James is up on the roof at night, and if he's really okay. He says yes, he's okay. She doesn't believe him. She points out how Mason also told his wife he was fine, and then this. She's scared, and her fear is sharp. James says he's not his father. It's a line meant to reassure, to promise he won't repeat whatever mistakes his dad made. But a flashback cuts in. Young James getting an American flag tattoo on his arm, a gift from his soldier father on his birthday. The family history of service is part of who he is. It weighs on him. At Mason's funeral, James stands at the grave and soaks in the quiet. Mike, another old teammate, joins him. The three used to be a tight crew. They swap a few memories, laugh a little at the lighter moments, but the mood is heavy. James asks how Mason died. Mike doesn't answer directly. James is at least relieved to learn Mason's family will get a full payout. News that eases the financial worry a little. Mike tells James to swing by his place before Mike leaves town. Later, James shows up at Mike's house. Mike's wife and kids are there, including their son who's in a wheelchair. They shoot some hoops in the yard and talk. At dinner, Mike's kid asks the casual, soldier fan question. Who was the better soldier, Dad or James? James deflects. Mike's the teacher, the better one, he says. Still, James remembers that once he saved Mike's life on a mission. The idea of these guys being brothers in arms is plain. Over dessert, Mike admits money's tight for James, and he tells him what he's been doing. He works for a private security outfit that operates under the radar, supposedly tied to national security. It's the same outfit that employed Mason. Mike explains the pay, the abuse of paperwork that keeps everything off the books, and how private outfits don't care about a blood test. They only want results. He pitches the job to James, saying James has the skills, the need, and that he shouldn't waste the chance. James, desperate and cornered by bills, listens. Mike takes James out to a big, heavily guarded ranch where the company's crew gathers. There James meets Rusty Jennings, the leader. Rusty tells James not to call him sir, and flips through James's file like he's reading a novel. Rusty's blunt. The military takes everything and then walks away, leaving veterans to fend for themselves. Many soldiers feel cheated and abandoned, he says, and that's why he built this private group, to give guys a paycheck, a purpose, and a crew that still has pride. Rusty pitches the work as cleaner than the other private options. Some groups might take morally gray jobs, but his firm claims to do meaningful missions with decent pay and presidential-level authority when needed. They handle national security gaps, gather intel, and strike when necessary. Rusty brings up a current problem in Berlin, something that threatens U.S. interests. Mike will lead the job. It's off the books, completely deniable, and they'll pay well. Rusty slides a $50,000 advance across the table and promises James's family will be looked after while James is gone. James thinks about his bills and about Jack and Brienne. After a beat, he agrees. That night, he wakes Brienne and hugs her, telling her he got work. At first, she looks relieved. Then she sees the check and her worry takes over. James downplays it. "I'll be babysitting corporate clients," he says, hoping the lie will calm her. Brienne knows he's not telling the whole truth. She turns away, trying to hide fear and anger. James wraps his arms around her and kisses her shoulder, insists he only wants what's best for them. The memory of his dad and that flag tattoo flashes through his mind again, markers of duty and legacy that push him forward. The next morning, James rides his bike to the airport, packs for the job, and flies to Berlin. He checks into a hotel the company arranged and waits. A local contact, Katia, meets him in the room and lays out the assignment. Their target is a virologist named Salim Mohsen, whose lab sits roughly 40 kilometers outside the city. This is not a simple tale. Katia warns James it's risky and ties in a possible bioterrorism. She shows him a laptop with details and hands him car keys. James heads out to start observing. He tells Salim day and night, taking notes. He watches the guy come and go, sees deliveries of animals to the lab, learns the house uses a gate code. One day, Salim uses an old payphone and James overhears part of a call. Salim talks about promising results but fears a mole on his team. He mentions they could be in danger if someone's leaking info. That makes James uneasy. The next morning, James gets a message. Pack up, move to a different safe house. There he meets Mike and the rest of the team. Their gear arrives sealed. Mike briefs them. Salim's work involves dangerous flu strains and is funded by a charity tied to terrorist groups. They've got a floor plan from an insider, but there's a snag. They need a guard's fingerprint to open certain doors. The plan is straightforward. Move fast, get in, grab Salim, get the intel, and get out. Straight into the woods, into an extraction point where a German contact will take them to an airfield and their plane. Everyone suits up in black tactical kit, checks their comms, and takes code names. They get dropped off near the woods a short distance from the facility and creep in. They neutralize a guard quickly and use his fingerprint to gain entry. Time is tight. Rooms are cleared quietly at first. They face no resistance. They find Salim and bind him. Someone copies files from the lab computers, research data, and whatever records are on the machines. It looks like they have what they came for. Then word comes in. Berlin police are heading their way. The whole operation is now running on a tighter timeline. Rusty calls in and gives a brutal order. Activate Code X. Code X means destroy everything. Make it look like an accident and kill anyone inside, so there are no witnesses. Burn the place and leave no trace. It's a one-word decision that flips the mission from a grab-and-go to mass destruction. They start moving to execute the new orders. Laptops and research samples are grabbed. Mike tells James to handle Salim. That's the euphemism for whatever needs to be done to eliminate the target. Salim, awake and terrified, protests. He insists he's just a scientist, not linked to terror. He claims his work could save lives, that it's meant for good. He pleads with James to allow him to live, to let the world have the research. He mentions a safety deposit box containing backup data and begs James to protect it, arguing the material could be crucial. James listens but stays quiet. He injects something into Salim to knock him out. Then, in a surprising move, James quietly undoes the zip ties around Salim's hands. Elsewhere, another team member rigs the fuse box so the electrical system will short. Someone else spreads fuel over the lab floor. The setup is in place for fire and catastrophe. While the others set the stage, Mike plugs in a device that will trigger the destruction. The moment the flames hit the chemicals inside the lab, it was like the whole place turned into a bonfire in seconds. No time for alarms, no time for anyone to react. Everything was just swallowed up in heat and smoke. James and the rest of the crew didn't even look back. They just walked away as if they hadn't been the ones to set it off, moving fast but calm, like men who'd done this kind of thing before. They reached the spot where Katia was waiting for them, the plan being to disappear before anyone figured out what happened. But things went sideways real quick. Out of nowhere, Berlin police rolled up. No questions, no warnings, guns out, shouting orders none of the team planned on following. And then it was chaos. Bullets flying from both sides, glass shattering, people shouting in German, the crack of rifles echoing off the buildings. The team fired back hard, but it wasn't clean. Cops went down, but the team wasn't untouched either. One of their own got hit bad, blood soaking his gear as he collapsed behind a car. Katia, the local contact who set up their intel, got caught in the crossfire too. She went down screaming, clutching her side. And everyone knew what it meant if the police got to her while she was still breathing. She knew too much. Mike didn't even hesitate. He walked over, looked her right in the eyes, and ended it before the cops could reach her. Cold, fast, necessary. James saw it happen, but didn't say a word. There was no time to think about morals out here. The cops were pressing in hard. James pulled the pin on a grenade and hurled it toward their cars. The blast shook the street, giving them a few seconds of cover as smoke swallowed everything. When the dust settled, only James and Mike were still on their feet. Everyone else was either dead or too hurt to move. Mike was limping bad, a bullet lodged somewhere in his leg. James grabbed him by the vest and dragged him toward the woods as sirens wailed behind them. By now, the German police weren't playing around. More units showed up with rifles and flashlights, spreading out like a hunting party. Their beams cut through the trees as they searched the dark forest, calling out orders. James and Mike ditched everything they didn't absolutely need, guns, gear, even food, keeping only the small drive with a mission date on it, the thing that had cost so many lives already. They stumbled into a shallow creek, cold water soaking their clothes as they waded downstream, trying to cover their trail. James spotted what looked like an old drainage tunnel half hidden under some rocks. "We can make it through there," he told Mike. Mike looked like he was about to pass out from blood loss, but he nodded. "It's long," James warned. "You've got to hold your breath." Mike just gritted his teeth. "Do it." They both went under, water closing over their heads as they swam blind through the pitch-black tunnel. It felt like forever, lungs burning, the sound of rushing water in their ears. Finally, they came out on the other side, gasping for air. James checked Mike's leg in the dim light. It was bad, way worse than he'd realized. Mike was pale, bleeding through a makeshift bandage. "This doesn't feel right," James muttered, shaking his head. "Shooting cops this whole thing." Mike cut him off. "We didn't have a choice. Forget about it." Then he leaned back against the rocks, looking James dead in the eye. "Leave me here. Finish the job. Tell my family what happened." But James wasn't going to abandon him. "Not happening," he said flatly. He tore through his pack, pulled out a transfusion kit, and hooked himself up to pump his own blood into Mike's veins. For hours they sat there in the dark while James grew weaker and weaker, until finally Mike's pulse steadied a little. When the sun came up, James could barely stand. His knee, already messed up from before, was screaming with pain. He handed Mike the data drive. "Get it to Berlin," James said. "I'll catch up." Mike didn't like it, but he agreed. 48 hours, James told him. "I'll find you." Then Mike was gone, limping toward Berlin while James stayed behind, too weak to move. Alone in that tunnel, James leaned against the wall, shaking from blood loss, flashes of his past coming back to him. He saw himself as a kid on the beach, his dad telling him how he used to swim out into the ocean as far as he could go. Far enough that he wasn't sure he could make it back. "That's when you find out what you're made of," his dad had said. It stuck with him all these years. By the time James pulled himself out of the tunnel, he was starving, half dead, and covered in mud. He stumbled across a Hunter's Park truck, stole some food and clothes, and kept moving. When he finally made it to the hotel where Mike was supposed to be waiting, he found a note hidden in the room. "Contact made. back at 10. But morning came, and Mike never showed. James started to worry. He called Rusty on a disposable phone, asking straight out if Mike had made it to Berlin. Rusty's answer hit him like a brick. No, never checked in. Something was wrong. Bad wrong. Rusty told him to head to a nearby bridge for pickup. 20 minutes later, a brown BMW rolled up, right on time. But James got screamed at him. If Mike never made contact, how did Rusty know where to send a car? The pieces clicked together. Rusty had sold him out. Before James could react, gunmen on motorcycles closed in, spraying bullets. The BMW guys joined in. James dove off the bridge into the river as rounds tore through the water around him. He came up firing, dropped one biker, and ran into a sewer tunnel, smashing every light as he went until the whole place was swallowed in darkness. The gunman followed, flashlights cutting through the black. James struck first. By the time it was over, only James was still breathing. One of the dying attackers confessed the truth. The mission had been compromised from start. The ranch wanted both James and Mike dead to cover everything up. Mike had been captured alive. Before dying, the man gave James a code word, Tomahawk, and the location of safe house. Using it would at least buy him some time. James left the sewers furious and went straight to Professor Salim's house. Inside, he found Salim's wife and son. He didn't hurt them. He just asked about the package Salim mentioned before dying. Turned out it was in a Swiss bank. They got it, a tablet with all of Salim's research. When James finally saw the video on it, his heart sank. Salim hadn't been building a weapon. He'd been creating a vaccine to save lives. Something Big Pharma wanted buried, because it would cost them too much money. James had killed an innocent man, and then snipers came for him. He barely escaped as the safe house exploded behind him, crossing into Poland, then flying back to the States onto the radar. He went straight to Mike's house, ready to tell his widow what happened. But Mike was alive, playing with his kid like nothing happened. The betrayal cut deeper than any bullet. James followed him, confronted him, learned the truth. Mike sold out for $4 million. Rusty planned everything. But when James told Mike about Salim's vaccine and how Rusty wanted to weaponize it, Mike finally switched sides. Together, they stormed Rusty's ranch. The fight was brutal. Mike took a bullet. Rusty went down screaming. James finished him without a second thought. Mike bled out on the escape. James burned the car with his body inside, so no one could use it against his family. And then James finally went home, watching his wife and son from a distance before stepping out to join them, carrying all the scars no one would ever see.